Enough to be joined by Andrey and Kris of Vyntelligence. So thank you very much for joining us, guys. And we're going to talk about a topic that's not only very current, but very broad around DevOps and AI, and specifically the intersection of where that meets and the rise of ML ops within that. Perhaps if we could start with a little introduction to you guys and what Vyntelligence does, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Kris Balonek. My position is a senior software engineer at Vyntelligence. My daily duties involve helping the data science team, training, packaging, and operating the models on AWS. So yes, sort of ML ops.
So my name is Andrey Semenyuk, and my position is senior cloud operations engineer. So I'm mainly responsible for the general infrastructure, also AWS mainly, but also sometimes other services.
And I suppose, we could dive right in. I suppose the impact of AI on our lives and technology is getting greater and greater every day, and it's kind of how we started this conversation, and how not only that affects product and product development, but the intersection or the rise of ML ops. And for a layman, how would you describe ML ops? I mean, what is it? How would you define it?
An extension of DevOps, isn't it? I mean, everything that everything you can say about DevOps, you try to apply that to MLOps. Now the questions become what is DevOps, and that's pretty hard to define. Luckily, I just finished reading the Phoenix project, so I think that's like the Bible of DevOps. I highly recommend that. So yeah, it's a set of practices that enable collaboration within the business, that connect everyone. In practical terms, that means automating deployments, monitoring software, whether these are services or machine learning models, and then being mindful of those feedback loops. If there is a failure in production, you need to be able to fix it up quickly. You need to not react. There was a better word for it. Well, let's say, okay, you need to react quickly.
I agree. And I think that these feedback loops are really important, because my understanding is that often it's in context of MLOps, right? So it's also about the quality of the model, right? Because we know that sometimes, over time, the quality may get worse. So it's important to catch it before your clients or your customers will complain, right? And generally, so for me, MLOps is somewhere on the intersection of DevOps, ML, data engineering, right? It's somewhere in the middle. But that's true that it's really hard to draw a line and say, that's DevOps, that's MLOps, that's something else. Yes, I'm afraid it's not always possible.
And do you think with that, you're right. I think there's so many different companies have different titles for jobs, and it kind of tends to reflect what they do as a business, or what someone in that role is doing. Do you think? I suppose first question maybe is, what does that mean to Vyntelligence and your day job? How much AI and machine learning, how much is involved on a daily basis for you at Vyntelligence?
So as the only engineer, I'm as a cloud engineer on the data science team. It is primarily there is ops, which mostly involves editing YAML files most of the time, But because we are quite early in that journey, the data science team was established just 2 years ago, and it always starts very small. So there is a data scientist, and at some point, someone thinks, we need a reliable way of putting these creations into production. And I think the typical scenario is that you just fetch an engineer from the backend team or from the big data team, and you allocate that person to help with the data science needs. So that was kind of my story. So there was more. Initially, there was a lot of code to be written. So it was primarily a development job, writing all the pipelines, figuring out how to package the model in reliable, repeatable, and cost-effective way. Now 2 years in, we do have 4 data scientists, and there is still one infrastructure guy, and we are trying to we want to balance that a little bit, figure out how to enable those data scientists to increase their cadence, remove impediments. If I decide what to do, I ask myself, what are the problems for the data science guys? Like, how can I make the work faster? How can I remove problems for them?
And so that's quite interesting. So as that team's grown, obviously you probably similarly hire in your own mold in terms of people who are very good at problem solving, understand infrastructure, great with DevOps, and probably come from quite problem solving / mathematical backgrounds. If going forwards now, you said you're trying to balance the cadence, making sure that you get the right people or the right split of time for the people you've got there. What skills or what skills do you look at that would make someone really successful at that job? Because as I said, there's MLOps. Someone will call it MLOps, someone else will call it DevOps with AI, someone else will call it, completely different. What skills do you think, or what skill sets make someone in your team very successful at that?
Yeah, we are still writing code, so a lot of code. We are building that platform. So this is something I ignored initially when looking for candidates, but I guess for me it was obvious that we will be writing Python library services. There is so much stuff to write. So I would say where we don't have all the processes, we don't have all the automation. We want someone who is comfortable with writing Python library services and is really passionate towards automation.
Okay.
But not too early, right? Processes first needs to be manual. First, you need to figure out the processes, then you code them. You don't want to be too fast with that.
Yeah. And with I know it's a strange question, but with the hiring of people in the MLOps space, and as you mentioned, Kris, I think it sounds like a potentially pretty varied area for an engineer to work within because of the balance of work and technologies involved. How important do you think it is for that person to have experience of ML models, the building, the training, the grasp of the models themselves versus all of the technologies that exist around the models?
Yeah, I ask myself that question. So initially I thought, it's important to know ML. You should. Well, it helps if you're interested if you're passionate about it, if you are at least interested in the topic. Obviously, we hope these kinds of people will apply. But the day-to-day job, I think it's all of these metrics. You have to be aware of this main cycle of training, evaluating, deploying, and monitoring production. But I would say this is something you can easily learn on the job. More important for us, for me, these are just these hard technical skills like AWS, infrastructure of code. I mean, you don't want to struggle with that. You want to be confident in making things. And we have people around, data scientists, who, you will talk with, and who will guide you, like what is important to observe, what are the observables, and then your task is to collect that data, those statistics, and present it to the data science team, choosing the tools, choosing the technologies.
So in other words, it's more about ops rather than ML, right?
Yeah.
So of course, some understanding, like general understanding, is will help, of course, because you need to talk on with data scientists on the same language, right? But I can just share a personal story, right? So once I was talking to my ex-colleague about the position that we had, MLOps, and he was really scared because of that ML part. He told me oh no, I know nothing about ML, right? And that's wrong from my perspective, right? So I think we can, maybe we not only we, but generally the industry, right? So may be interested, in MLOps is still an ops, right? So you need to have a deep knowledge of how general DevOps tools and processes, how do they work. And regarding the ML part, it can be learned, right? Because you don't really need to become a data scientist. You don't need that, I don't know, math training, for example. It's not applicable here. It could be a good start, though, if you want to progress to that area, or if you don't, then no problem. But still, it's about ops in my perspective. And I think also it's worth to mention that in this area, I mean ML, AI, all this stuff, we have a lot of development, right? So every other month, I don't know, a couple of months, there's something new released, or there are some changes. And that means that you always need to try new approaches, right? Try new tools, maybe sometimes come up with your own solutions for something. So the successful candidate, in my understanding, will be, that type of person who's really willing to do a lot of experiments, who's willing to, do a lot of changes. Maybe not everything at the end will make it to the production, but still you have to try, right? You have to understand what's better, what works better from different perspective, right? That's important.
Do you think, out of interest, that's because, so in my experience, whether it's DevOps, core object-oriented programming languages, infrastructure, cybersecurity, the best engineers tend to be the most inquisitive and interested, and as you said, try things, investigate things, read books. They tend to be the best. But do you think the pace at which, whether it's AI or ML, is getting involved in tech, as you said, your colleague who was put off by it, do you think that puts people off? Do you think that's a scary, that's like an extra thing that makes it more scary?
Sometimes, definitely. Yeah, sometimes. But I think it's very much depends on the person, right? Because someone could be incentivized by it, right? Someone could be, oh, there's an extra challenge for me. And someone will be, oh no, I will not even apply just because, I don't think that's, I cover all the points in the job description.
I think another thing we definitely see is that they're kind of on the other side of that coin, is that there are definitely candidates who are very inquisitive and passionate about this space, but actually, whether it's at work, i.e. where they work now, or potentially a new job, there isn't always necessarily a kind of commercially viable way to apply those technologies to the problems they're trying to solve. So actually, they're super interested in AI and ML, and potentially ML ops maybe as a job title, as it were, but actually the company they're potentially working for, actually really they need a DevOps engineer, as kind of you two have described, who are interested in the ML space. And actually, matching the two together sometimes is a little challenging, because it is an area that garners a lot of interest. I think a lot of candidates certainly are very interested in the ability to apply machine learning models, or even large language models, or generative AI to a particular problem set. And in some cases, and in some industries, that's very applicable and very valuable. But I think in others, actually, it's not necessary. Actually, the primary requirement of the position is to build systems, as you mentioned, Kris, that the data scientists can train their models on top of, and then to give them, or have technology there that gives good feedback, so those scientists understand whether their models are doing what's required or not. And I think how you, potentially, if you're hiring, how you communicate that, how you position that, is quite important. I don't know what your guys' experience potentially has been about hiring in this space, but I'd perhaps be interested in things like volume, quality, quantity, applicableness. When you've had positions like this out there, because I can imagine there's sometimes a little bit of a mismatch.
Yeah, there is a variety. So we were advertising we're trying to hire an ML infrastructure engineer. So yeah, I think I did a pretty good job listing all the stuff that I work with. But yeah, for some reason, people often ignore the infrastructure part and only see the ML in the title. So there was a lot of data scientists interested in this job.
Yeah.
And, I got an impression that that there was an obvious mismatch, just a completely different skill set. Between a typical data science and basically the software engineer, DevOps, platform engineer. Maybe that would be the best title for this job. So yeah, naming is one of the most difficult things in computer science, and maybe I fell victim to that. I could not name this position well enough.
I think that is it's a very valid point, a very interesting one. That you get you either get someone that doesn't apply because they don't tick every box and they think, well, I'm not good enough for that role, even though they probably are. Or you get other people that view it as, oh, I really want to learn more about that technology. I really want to know more. Let me apply. I don't have any of the skills, but it sounds very interesting. So I don't think you'll ever get that right. I think the bit that's more important is making sure what's very clear is they need to have these skills, this experience, that's non-negotiable. And then any interest in generative AI, machine learning, natural language processing, maths, problem solving, those are all great. And depending on what your knowledge in those areas will depend on whether we think you're good, very good, or amazing. But I think it's making sure that as you said, I think the naming, the title, it can either put the people you want or attract the wrong people, because they're like, yeah, I definitely want to learn about that. That sounds amazing. Which does. Having been through that process, and I know you're not, what advice, if you were kind of giving yourself advice or another company that started hiring, what would you give them as advice of this is what you should have, this is what you shouldn't have, kind of thing?
Yeah. Best to focus on skills, specific skills. Yeah, as you said, identify the hard requirements. So for me, that will be Python coding and AWS. It's the bare minimum. And it depends at what level you're hiring as well. Junior versus senior. Obviously, you have very different expectations there. But I like the idea of describe your technologies. What's not? Some of them are nice to haves. Kind of show them as things you will learn. If you're curious about these, please apply. And naming is important. ML ops engineer, maybe. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I tried Googling that position, like how many ML ops engineers are being advertised in UK. Not a high number.
No.
Yeah,
No.
these specific words. So the skills might be, yeah, people just call it different ways.
Yeah, I think interesting approach would be like, say, for example, you have just one position opened, right? So you could try to like advertise it as, different, like few positions, like with different
Yeah.
words, right? And see which position, which opening will get you like the most matching candidates, and then proceed with that one, right? So if you need a MLOps engineer, you can try to frame it as MLOps itself, or as a DevOps for ML team, or something like that, right? And it probably will attract different people.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say that's actually something we regularly do when we work with clients. Is the way our business is structured is that the consultants specialize by technology, and I think in some instances we can probably leverage, and maybe this case would be the same, probably 3 different teams. Our end, there's a kind of Python team where you're looking for an engineer, but who's interested in cloud, and kind of infrastructure as code, and interested in perhaps how ML models work in production. There's a kind of more traditional DevOps, cloud engineering, platform engineering team where perhaps they've had exposure to ML models or data science as a team, and they built the infrastructure for that team to run their models. And then there is the ML stroke data team, our end anyway, that they're probably working with more traditional ML engineers, but if those engineers work in smaller businesses, then maybe they are also building the infrastructure on which their models run. If they're working somewhere much bigger, then there's probably a separate team for that. And I think kind of as I think we've all probably discussed, the ML ops title is absolutely a variation of probably 3 or 4 different people. And getting the balance of those 3 or 4 people right is the hard bit, but certainly the important bit when it comes to hiring as well. And for Alvin, for you guys in the kind of ML AI space, I think you mentioned, Andrey, earlier that there's a lot of external models, there's a lot of open source models and technology that businesses will apply, or they'll use to apply to their to their tech stack and their problems. How in your mind, how big a trend is that, I suppose, and how likely do you think that's going to carry on growing, or do you think that perhaps in some cases businesses will start to build their own proprietary tech and proprietary models because they're a bit wary about using something open source or something other businesses can get their hands on as well?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, of course, some businesses, they just have to do that because of like different regulations, right? So I think we will, like in the future, we will see like both, right? Because someone will be just using I don't know, things like, I don't know, ChatGPT, for example, right? Or something like that. Someone will drift towards just getting something like Llama and install it like on your own infrastructure. Someone will train like their own models like from the beginning, right? I think it's pretty much depends on the on your task, like on your business needs, right? So what you're trying to solve, and if there are already something available, and if there are you allowed to use it? Because there could be different restrictions.
So to continue on that, because that's really interesting, is do you think, and I'm kind of asking a hypothetical question because I know it's hard to see. Do you think the impact that AI is having now and will have, do you think it'll be greater? Do you think it'll be more independent of technical teams and what they're delivering? Do you think it'll be more intuitive and make more decisions? Do you think it'll be effectively? Do you think it'll be more impacting on your life in technology and producing whether you produce a product or a service or whatever it might be? Do you think it will take up more of the technology kind of ecosystem?
I hope so. Yeah. there are a lot of tasks that are pretty mundane, and yeah, so for sure, a lot of that can be automated. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, so something like a GitHub Copilot. It's hard to predict like products like that, offerings like that. Will there be? They are good at some things. They are very good at some things, but they just can't be applied to. So GitHub Copilot, it can write a unit test for you. It can generate some
Yeah.
configuration, but it will not do requirement gathering, or may not be will not come up for the optimal architecture for your problem yet. So,
Yeah.
well, wherever you have collaborate with other people, this will be very difficult to automate for sure. So I've seen an opinion somewhere that DevOps might be the last job to be automated, because how cross-cutting that is, how much talking and understanding of the business is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you also answered that a little bit when you said, yes, there's so many mundane jobs that can be automated, which I was about to say, do you think it's a good thing? So it's obviously a good thing as well, which is great. How I'm conscious that I've kept you for a little while already, but just last thing from me, I don't know if Nick will have anything else, but how do you think the next couple of years looks evolving with AI and machine learning ops? How do you think that's going to look sort of into the next couple of years?
Yeah, I think that we're just at the beginning with this process, right? So next couple of years, I'm pretty sure that we will see like only increases, like where AI and how AI is applied, right? And even now, like sometimes we don't even realize that something contains AI. Like for example, if you will just take a photo with your smartphone, right? So chances are that something under the hood will, like your phone will use AI to make that photo looks better, and you don't even think about it, right? It's something that's just happens under the hood naturally. And I think that, yeah, in the future, like in the near future, we'll see like more and more applications of the AI. Maybe at some point, like if we will try to draw like a curve, right? So at some point, maybe it will be like more flat, but we are definitely somewhere like at the beginning, right? So it definitely goes up at this point.
I think I spoke to a client who is, at the moment he's trying to integrate more and more AI into his business, and he said, because I said to him, "Are you worried about is it going to take people's jobs? How's it going to affect?" He was like, "No, I think it'll allow people to make better decisions quicker. So we'll allow products to evolve quicker, businesses do better, and actually long run will create more jobs because it'll accelerate the process of where we're going. It's the next iteration or the next step on the technology evolutionary curve kind of thing." And as you said, I think it's like anything, that first hits, there's a huge impact, then it flattens out, then the next thing comes.
I think we work with a lot of companies of different shapes and sizes, sectors and domains, and I think almost all of them, they're generally of the mindset of we want to hire people, we want to use the right tool for certain jobs. And I think AI in whatever form is often the right tool for certain jobs. And as long as you can match it to those right jobs and it can be valuable, actually it's a value add. It's not a takeaway. And I think hopefully that makes me feel happy in the sense that our business will still be required in some shape or form, because engineers and the hiring of engineers will still be applicable. And hopefully for Kris and Andrey, similarly, your skill sets will still also be needed. That AI will just be a nice addition to what you're capable of. And I think, I think almost exclusively that's the same message we get is, that actually in the right circumstances, it can really help you deliver quicker. And for certain tasks, it's very valuable. And in some cases, it's better than doing it yourself. And therefore, why wouldn't you use it? So I think the skill of combining the two is probably maybe in terms of perhaps hiring and or interviewing, maybe thinking about us or you guys, deciphering how someone applies AI tools to the problems they're trying to solve is important rather than whether they use it at all. and I think as you've all said, that sounds like it kind of applies in your world as well as it does in ours. So.
Yeah,
Yes.
we use a lot of tools in our daily jobs. So I think the same is going to happen with AI. Even though you have this artificial general intelligence one day, I think people will stop anthropomorphizing. Is that the word? You mean you that's beyond my skill set. But people will stop thinking about these machines as humans. Like they did that with PC computers in the 90s. Yeah, apparently so. It's the same thing. People will just get used to it. This is another tool in my toolbox. I can ask it to do this or that.
Well, look, I really appreciate you giving the time. What actually might be quite interesting, and I won't hold you to it, but what might be interesting is for us to check back in and do another episode in a year, and then find out like, what has the impact over a year been, and see how that affects, Vyntelligence, your job's just. It'd be quite interesting to see where that evolves to in the next bit.
Oh yeah, that's good. Good idea actually. Yeah, just check back in a year and see what's actually changed, right?
So that'd be great. Thank you very much. We really, really appreciate it. And hopefully, as I said, that's a good thing to put in the diary for a catch up and see where we are. Hopefully, we still have jobs. AI hasn't taken over the world, and we're still talking about the interesting effects it's having on technology. So really appreciate your time, and hopefully look forward to everyone joining us on the next episode of Talking Tech. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.